This is Gala Avery reporting to you from inside the Video Archive Cinema Club, the 20-seat secret cinema located within the Vista. Today, I am joined by Video Archive Cinema Club manager Matt Landsman to chat about the calendar for the week of Monday, November 5th. Hey, Matt.
Welcome back.
Thanks. I'm always happy to be in the cinema. I actually caught the show of Narrow Margin and the Human Factor last night. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was. I think that the human factor in particular played really well with the audience, especially towards the end. People were just laughing and having a great time when George Kennedy starts getting his violent revenge against all of those thugs and they're falling from the ceiling.
Oh
And
my god, that sequence within the grocery store, like within the commissary is amazing, and it's so fun to rewatch and then hear people's reactions because they're very similar to the ones that Quentin and Roger had.
I love how every time somebody gets shot, they do like an extra little spin as they hit the ground.
It's awesome. I love it. You know what? There was one other thing that happened last week that I kind of wanted to talk about before we jump into November. Let's do a brief recap of that mystery triple that took place on Halloween because we weren't able to share what three movies they were, but now the cat is out of the bag. So, what was the first movie on that mystery triple?
So the first movie of the Mystery Marathon is a SOV movie called Haunted Ween. And basically, imagine Halloween, but if the main guy was sort of accidentally killing people by losing control of his rage instead of being the shape. This movie was just a lot of fun, I think. It's clearly trying to do Halloween. Like, they even have the killer POV vision that, like the Michael Myers vision. But it was a lot of just silliness as well. But what I love about it is that they made it in earnest. It's a pure Kentucky movie. It was made in Bowling Green, Kentucky. The filmmaker was a local resident there, and it was clearly made with a bunch of local, pretty non-actors who had never been in a movie before. It has a guy who has like the craziest like southern accent I've ever seen as sort of the comic relief of the movie. And I think it doesn't matter if I say a little spoiler here that like he's also kind of the hero of this movie, and
So, he's kind of like a foil a little bit
you never
then.
see like the goofball become like almost like the main hero at the end here. In this case, the would-be Myers house is called the Berber house, and basically these like frat guys are trying to like hold a fundraiser or something, and the guy who used to live in that house, who is the killer, shows up and gives them the keys to the house and says, "Hey, if you want to hold your Haunted Ween Hellraiser fundraiser at my haunted house, you can do that." And people start coming to the haunted house on Halloween night, and there's a really incredible sequence in this where the killer is behind a chain link fence and all these children and these onlookers are watching as he kills people for real, but they think it's part of the haunt experience. And he literally knocks somebody's head off with a baseball bat. And people are like, wow, the effects are so good. And I think that this was I don't know, just a really fun movie that primed people what they were in for the rest of the night. It has a great cover with this sort of ugly old man mask. That's one of the masks that the killer wears in the movie.
And we posted all of the pictures of these tapes on the Instagram, Video Archives Club Instagram, and then also on the Patreon. So patreon.com/video archives.
You were getting the live gala updates
You're
on
getting,
Patreon.
I was giving the live updates. Matt was texting me. But you know what? I actually have the box right here, courtesy of Matt. So I'm going to go ahead and read the back of it just so you guys get the flavor because we posted the fronts of them, but not the backs. So 20 years ago, a deadly accident forced Eddie Berber from his home. Guess what? Eddie's homesick. When Eddie was younger, he never got his chance to be a part of the family business, the Berber haunted house. Now that he's home, he wants to play. He tells a college fraternity they can use the house as a fundraiser. While the Sigma Phi's prepare their rooms for fun and thrills, Eddie prepares his special room for blood and kills. As cries echo from the house, you wonder, are they screaming for their life or cheering for their death? Dang, I thought that was going to rhyme. One thing for sure, nobody knows what's really happening. People are dying and people are laughing. And Matt, just to say it out loud, your tape is number 65 out of 75.
So this is a limited edition reissue that was signed by the director. And the reason I have this one, which I actually had to import from Poland, is because an original copy of this movie on a slipcase VHS is probably in the $500 range, and there
Ooh,
literally aren't
yeesh.
any to buy on eBay. This is a very rare tape.
That's crazy. Well, what is the second movie on this triple?
So the second movie is Jacko, and I don't know if
Jacko.
it has the nursery rhyme from Jacko on the back there, but
Let's see.
let's see if you can read it.
Well, I'll read the back of the box just to get us started, but Mr. Jack will snap your spine, cut you in half with a scaly vine. The legend of Jacko is all but forgotten to the townspeople of Oakmoor Crossing, except in the nursery rhymes of children. Almost 100 years before, Warlock Walter Machen was hung for murder, but before he died, he raised up the fury of a demon creature to take revenge on the unwitting townspeople. Many died before it was destroyed and buried forever, until now. When a trio of grave robbers stumble across Jacko's unmarked grave, they unleash the vengeful monster to continue its bloodthirsty quest.
Does that sound familiar to you, that premise?
Should it?
Well, it's kind of like a silly pumpkin head.
By the way, Jacko, it's harvest time.
It says on the cover, he literally is a man with a big pumpkin head and a scythe, and it says under his picture, it's harvest time on the cover.
It's Morbin time.
This is a 95 direct-to-video movie. Again, rarely screens anywhere. This one was definitely like the middle feature of the like spiritually. This felt like the middle feature. I don't think it's nearly as good as the other two, but it was still a lot of fun with the crowd. And there's some interesting things about this movie. It's the final film of John Carradine. He plays the wizard who was murdered and in the beginning, and Jacko's like sort of getting revenge posthumously for that wizard. And this was filmed 8 years before the movie came out, so he died, I think, 6 years before this movie came out. And it's also has Cameron Mitchell in it posthumously.
Oh, nice. Wow, there's a lot of dead guys in this movie.
And Scream Queens. It's notable. Linnea Quigley's in this movie. We all know her from Return of the Living Dead and Sorority Babes in the Slime Ball Bolorama. It's funny, she was on set for 3 days, and apparently this has her most graphic nude scene she ever did in it.
Wow.
It's funny because this is sort of like aesthetically like kids on Halloween sort of movie, but it's also like pretty erotic at times. And it also has Brinke Stevens, who is another iconic Scream Queen, and she's only in there for a little span of time, but I thought this one was fun. The audience enjoyed it, and I think the middle feature is always like sort of an interesting hump to get over, and it's not going to be as serious as the first feature or the last feature, but we had fun with this one.
And what about the third movie on the triple, the very final one?
So
in the scary, scary box.
The third movie is one that goes by many names. Some people know it as Halloween Night. Some people know it as Death Mask, but most people know it as Hack-O-Lantern, which is by far the coolest title.
Well, Hack-O-Lantern is the coolest title, but this VHS tape by Massacre Video is called Death Mask, and on the front it says they're looking for new blood with this kind of like scary, like kabuki style mask. Oh wow, look at the back of this box.
So this is a officially licensed VHS release from Massacre Video. The thing about this, again, like Haunted Ween, is to get an original copy of this one is going to cost you about $500. And original copies of this, there's sort of an orange slip that says Hack-O-Lantern that is sort of the most desirable version. And then there's also one that says Halloween Night, which has a really cool cover. So someday I would like a better, cooler OG copy of this on VHS, but even this reissue version is like $100.
Let me read the back of the box for you. Death Mask. Beneath the serene Norman Rockwell facade of the Drindle family hides a gruesome secret. Only Amanda Drindle and her father, Grandpa Drindle, know the sickening, incestuous truth about little Tommy. But that doesn't explain why Tommy likes the taste of blood so much. Tonight, Halloween night, the whole Drindle family will learn the truth. Now that Tommy has come of age, his greatest challenge awaits him, to prove himself to his master, Satan. While Grandpa preps Tommy for his initiation into the sinister cult of evil, Tommy's younger siblings, Roger and Vera, innocently prepare for the Halloween festivities. Meanwhile, a maniacal killer, masked in the face of death, stalks the town in a vicious hunt for victims. The first to meet the executioner's bloody judgment is Tommy's sexy girlfriend, Nora. But as the party gears into action, the killers mercilessly stalk the friends of Tommy, Roger and Vera, in an ever accelerating murderous frenzy. In a blood chilling climax of good versus evil, the mysterious killer's mask of death is chipped away, revealing the most shocking and bizarre Drindle secret. A secret so devastating it will destroy the family and your soul forever.
It does have a twist ending, which I'm not going to spoil
No
because,
spoilers allowed because some people on this podcast have not seen it yet.
and they should. This movie's a lot of fun. It has great slasher kills. It has cult rituals. It has a cool villain mask, and it has like rock music in it. There's scenes of people just rocking out, like full extended music video type sequences in this movie with like cool like horror rock. I'd put it in there with like, Trick or Treat, the cult rock horror movie from the 80s, and Black Roses and stuff like that. And we also played Black Roses in October. So I like that subgenre of like hard rock horror. And just to sort of wrap up talking about these, there was never a question in my mind of like, what should these be? It was literally like, I want to show these three as a marathon. Like the mystery element almost came secondary to like these three being the three. Like they hit me like a lightning bolt, and I just knew it would make a banger triple feature.
Well, to be honest, I love the idea of a secret triple. I love these because I think the audience also loves them. You guys had great audience participation. We had an amazing flyer that you got to hand out to the people that stayed the entire time by artist Sarah Nielli. It looked like a great time. I was very sad that I wasn't able to make it, but in spirit, I was. I was reporting on the beat.
Yeah, Gala was reporting from the safety of Galatown and not from the video archives. But people loved this one. They were clapping every time the titles came up on screen. Afterwards, people were just
Yeah,
chatting about
and I
how.
also looked at the letterbox and I kind of tracked reviews because I highlighted some reviews from people that came to this on our Patreon just to be like, apparently in the first movie there's a bunch of RC Cola, so I think Quentin would love that.
You know what's funny is of these three, Hack O' Lantern is the most well known. It's had the most different releases over the years. I wouldn't say it's a well known movie by any means, but if you know horror VHS, a lot of people are fans of that movie. And I kind of thought, we're closing with the best. However, rewatching them, one after another and watching them with an audience, I gotta say, Haunted Ween was the winner here. It was just the most fun. It was the most earnest, and I highly recommend it.
Last episode, Matt and I talked in depth about the overall arching plan for November. But Matt, why don't you give a brief recap about what the theme of November is?
So, our overarching theme for November is sort of paying tribute to great actors and actresses of the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, particularly the 30s and 40s. So, we're really doing a spotlight on actresses like Sally Eilers and Florence Rice and Marlene Dietrich and some of those other great actors such as John Howard and Douglas Fairbanks, and really just shedding a spotlight on that era of cinema, which doesn't really get a lot of play in rep theaters in Los Angeles now.
Well, you guys heard it. That is kind of the overall theme of November. So let's get into the movies. The first one up is on Tuesday, the 5th of November at 2 p.m., and that is 1941's Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Mr. and Mrs. Smith from 1941 was a Jules pick on the calendar, and this one is directed by the great Alfred Hitchcock.
Oh my gosh.
But
How exciting to start like this week off with an Alfred Hitchcock.
it's different from any of his other movies because it was sort of the only overt comedy that he ever did. And I think that that was sort of done because Carol Lombard, who stars in it, wanted him to do it. He did it as a favor to her, which is why it's so different from the rest of his other stuff. And he was renting a space in her mansion that she shared with Clark Gable when he first came to America. So it was sort of a, you know, you scratch my back type situation, I guess. And Hitchcock was really dismissive of the movie. It ran counter to his serious reputation as a filmmaker, but it's really funny and it makes a perfect matinee. And unfortunately, this is the last film that Carol Lombard would appear in before she died in a plane crash
Oh my gosh.
shortly after the movie
It's
was made.
terrible.
But just to recap, it's a movie about a couple looking to spice up their marriage. And then they realize that their marriage isn't even valid in the first place. So they actually have to get remarried. And they're sort of playing this game of like, are we going to repropose to each other? Are we going to actually get married again? It stars Carol Lombard, like I said, who starred in My Man Godfrey, which you might have been able to see on the Vista big screen and Glorious 35 millimeter a couple months back. It also stars Robert Montgomery, who was a contract actor for MGM. He directed Lady in the Lake. But yeah, this is an underseen Hitchcock classic. We love showcasing films like this that are by filmmakers that you know, with talent that you might know, that haven't been seen by quite as many people.
And I just feel like I have to underline just so everyone makes sure that they know this is the 1941 Alfred Hitchcock Mr. and Mrs. Smith. This is not the 2005 Doug Liman Mr. and Mrs.
This
Smith.
is not the one with Angelina Jolie
and Brad Pitt,
Pitt.
and where they
Yeah.
kind
Where
of
they're
got together, where they're
spies.
spies, and it's the movie they got together on.
Oh.
But obviously, I think it'd be kind of interesting to watch those two back to back because it seems like it's a very loose remake of the overall theme of 1941's Mr. and Mrs. Smith. What about on Wednesday, the 6th of November at 2 p.m.? What's going on that day?
On Wednesday at 2 p.m., we have a really special presentation of a rare 16 millimeter print of Dishonored from 1931.
Okay, this is exciting. We have a 16 millimeter print this Wednesday.
Yeah, and this one is directed by Joseph von Sternberg. And if you know anything about him, you probably know about Marlene Dietrich because they are known for their many collaborations together. They did 7 movies together. The Blue Angel, which was considered Sternberg's sort of opus, and that was the movie in which she was discovered in, sort of. Morocco in 1930. Dishonored was 31. Shanghai Express, 32. Blonde Venus, also 32. The Scarlet Empress, and The Devil is a Woman. And Marlene Dietrich was sort of like box office poison in Germany. She had several flops that she appeared in, but von Sternberg was convinced that she was perfect for his film and that she was a star. And he fought his German producers and cast her in the part of Lola in Blue Angel. And he sort of became like the main shepherd of her American film career. She was his muse, and Blue Angel was his opus. And Morocco was like the hit that let everyone know who she was. So Dishonored was his second American feature, and she plays a spy in this, Agent X-27. It's a German agent that's sent to spy on the Russians. So this is pre World War II, and this was a pretty big hit. And Victor McLagan is also in this, who was with her in Morocco as well, and he was part of John Ford's stock company as an actor. The thing about this is it's one of those movies where you have an actress in this that can only be directed a certain way by a certain director. And people thought Sternberg was sort of like an overlord or a tyrant in a lot of cases. And there were actors who didn't want to work with him, but he worked with her better than anyone ever did. And he made her into a star. And they really loved each other, I think, until the end of their days. And people speculated on if he was in love with her or if it was his camera that was in love with her. And the way that he lit her and shot her in movies almost made it hard for other people to use her in movies because he portrayed her so well.
As someone who shoots film photography, I've said this once and I'll say it again. When you shoot a photo of a person, you are showing them how you see them. And you essentially, a lot of photographers and directors will make like love to the person that they are shooting on film through their camera. And it's a very special thing because some people just can capture certain people's essences really strong. And this seems like a really special opportunity to come and see this on a 16 millimeter print.
It has a really sort of magical glow to it, and she just looks amazing in it. You know, I test ran the print, and you're just sucked in when you're watching that. And it was actually Sternberg's, I think, daughter who wrote, I can think of no more intimate connection between director and star, and this connection can be felt in every frame of every film he ever shot of her. No actress has ever been photographed more beautifully than Dietrich.
You know what, Matt? I think it is time for a snack break. Let's head on over to the snack bar.
Let's all go to the lobby.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Got great ideas, but no idea how to build a website? Get Bluehost. Their AI design tool creates high-quality WordPress sites super fast. Whether you're a blogger, influencer, or launching a side hustle, Bluehost helps boost your growth with built-in marketing and e-commerce tools. Upgrade to cloud and get 100% uptime and 24/7 security to stay online all the time. Why wait? You've got the vision. Make it real. Visit Bluehost.com to get started.
Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
And we are back and ready for the next set of movies that are going to be showing at the Cinema Club this week. But Matt, what did you get from the lobby for your snacks?
So my preferred snack here, I have to say, is the vegan dogs. As someone who doesn't eat meat, I really enjoy the vegan hot dogs that we have here, and I am guilty of having one often at some of our evening double
Are
features.
you ketchup and mustard, or ketchup or mustard, or just plain? Are you
A
just
bit of
raw? Are you just raw dogging it?
No, I'm a bit of a relish fan, actually.
Oh,
I
nice.
relish the relish. And popcorn. You can't go wrong with the Vista's popcorn, which is made with real butter.
Of course. But I think you got something special there from a staff member.
So we want to give a shout out today to Leslie Alvarado, who's been with us for a long time at the Vista and has always been so helpful with taking people's snack orders and taking people's tickets and helping me out with stuff with the video archives. Today is her last day, and she's leaving to go pursue a career in teaching, I believe. And we asked her what her ideal snack order
Yeah,
is.
if you went to the counter and you asked Leslie, because I always like to do this at places, I'll go and I'll say, hey, what would you order? Or like, what's good here? If you were going to ask Leslie, she's going to tell you to order her favorite, which is
small cherry Coke, small popcorn with butter, kind ice cream bars, and Sour Bats, which are Haribo seasonal candies.
Yeah, because we're just exiting October. So if you want the Leslie, you know what to order. Let's get back into the movies this week. So we are going to be starting back up with Friday the 8th at 7 p.m. with a showing of 1949's Stray Dog.
Stray Dog. This was another Jules pick, and this is a crime noir by the great Kurosawa. It stars Toshiro Mifune, who's known for, of course, Seven Samurai, as a character named Murakami. And it's a detective story sort of set in the background of post-war Japan that's a precursor to a lot of the buddy cop movies. It starts off with this guy loses his gun on his first day at the job as a homicide detective who's just been promoted. And it leads him into a web of deception and a den of arms dealers. And people keep using his gun that was stolen to commit murders. What you'll like about this gala, and that was interesting about this, is that it was based on Jules Dassin. I hope I'm saying that right. Jules Dassin's The Naked City. And if you remember, back in September, we showed Rafifi, which was another Jules program, not Jules Dassin, Jules Director of Operations.
Unruly Julie, Jules McLean.
That is another Jules Dassin detective thriller, which played really, really well here. It has one of the greatest heist sequences of all time, and it's sold out in just one day. We literally,
Rafifi is one of my favorites, for sure.
That heist is amazing, where
Yeah.
you don't hear sound during it, and it's just like this kinetic energy. You can tell that it paved the way for so many great heist scenes, like in Heat and Dark Knight.
I have
and
a
all that
story.
stuff.
I actually have a story because Rafifi, that's the movie where they do the heist from the ceiling,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so my local Best Buy, someone stole every single item in the Best Buy by doing that. They went in from the ceiling and cleaned out the entire Best Buy. And the Best Buy had to be closed, I'm not kidding, for like 4 months because they did a Rafifi style heist on the Best Buy.
Do you think it was inspired by that?
I think it was inspired by Rafifi.
Well,
and
there was a real crime in Mexico that was inspired by the heist in Rafifi, and the movie was banned there for a time.
honestly, because like the Best Buy, they had to close it because they had to reinforce the ceiling. And they took everything. I'm not kidding. They took all the electronics. Somehow they got the appliances out. They took everything. And it was closed for like 4 months, and you could only do pickup. It was crazy.
So if you love Rififi and you dig Kurosawa, who doesn't, you'll probably dig this too. Ishiro Honda was an assistant director on this, who of
Oh, of
course would go
course.
on to direct Godzilla and Mothra, etc.
The film marks the first appearances of Minoru Chiaki, Noriko Honma, and Isao Kimura in a Kurosawa film. Kimura played the youngest of the Seven Samurai in Seven Samurai.
Minoru Chiaki, who would go on to appear in more than 10 movies with Kurosawa. Noriko Hanma, who played the medium in Rashomon.
And the baseball game scene was shot at the actual Korakuen Stadium.
So we're going to move on to the Midnight on November 8th, which is a Video Archives podcast classic,
Woo!
The One-Armed Executioner, which I think is probably one of those movies that has gone on to have a second life because of the podcast.
Yeah, I definitely think this is one that Quentin managed to uplift. There's a few last season that we had that had this case. This is from season 1, episode 5. It was our number 1 movie that episode. So one really cool thing about Bobby Suarez was that he was actually mentored by Senor Don Antonio Isasi Isamendi, who listeners may know from movies like The Summertime Killer. And so he was his mentor. And The One-Armed Executioner is his 5th film.
He was also really well known for They Call Her Cleopatra Wong.
Yeah, that was his 2nd film, I believe.
With Mary Lee, one of the great actresses of Singapore, and she went on to play that character in other movies as well.
One thing that's also really cool about Bobby Suarez is his movies were really well known globally because he did a ton of like international sales for his films. Like he kind of knew, and this is according to his son, who I interviewed, but he sold every country and every territory that he could. He was selling like Middle East, Australia, and that's also why his tapes made it to America, was because he was focusing super, super hard on pushing international for his movies.
And of course, this is a great looking Paragon tape with awesome cover art. I actually got my tape of this movie from Gala as one of her extra tapes.
I had a few of these lying around somehow.
So if you like this movie and you love the action movies of Bobby Suarez, I also highly recommend American Commandos. This movie is awesome because this is a movie that was briefly mentioned on the Video Archives podcast season 1, and I tracked it down and I watched it, and that movie is awesome. I hope we can show it in here someday because the action is just pure dynamite in that one. I loved American Commandos.
So no spoiler or anything, but there is a chance that movie in particular may or may not be being talked about by Quentin and Roger in an upcoming after show. So, but yeah, no spoilers or anything. You didn't hear it from me, you guys.
Check out The One-Armed Executioner. It's an awesome midnight. It's a great revenge-matic film. I loved hearing your guys' discussion on it, where Quentin kept talking about that one sort of henchman villain in the movie as like the pig in the mud.
Nigel Hogue
who
plays him.
Yeah, the pig. Yeah, that guy was awesome.
So again, if you want to hear Quentin and Roger and myself talk about The One-Armed Executioner, you can do so by listening to episode 5 of the Video Archives podcast. Let's move on now to Saturday the 9th at 7 p.m.
Saturday the 9th, we have an epic adventure, one of the classic adventure action fantasy sort of films of the era, which is The Adventures of Robin Hood, directed by William Kiley and Michael Curtiz. And this one stars the great Errol Flynn and Olivia de Havilland. And I basically wanted to play this as soon as Quentin programmed The Charge of the Light Brigade, which was another Errol Flynn and Olivia de Havilland film. They did 8 films together, and they had a great working relationship. And also that same film, The Charge of the Light Brigade, had the same director, Michael Curtiz. And it was interesting because Flynn fought with him. They didn't get along. Part of the reason is because Flynn was an animal lover and some horses passed away in the making of The Charge of the Light Brigade. And even on this film, Curtiz was having them take the plastic tips off of the swords to make the action feel more exciting, which put the actors in a bit of danger. And it led to apparently Flynn choking the director while they were making this movie.
To be in the year 1938.
But I just thought it would be great to pay tribute to that collaboration, particularly between Flynn and Olivia de Havilland. They did 8 movies together. Captain Blood is another one. And this was one of the great Technicolor movies. It was one of the first big studio movies to be made after Technicolor started being rolled out. They used all, I think, 11 Technicolor cameras that were in existence at the time to make it. It was made for $2 million, which was like the most expensive Warner Brothers movie ever made at the time. And they just weren't making movies like this. They're making like socially conscious movies and crime thrillers. So to see like this big grand period epic, which was really, it was just really something special. You know, we all know the story of Robin Hood. I don't need to like summarize that, but in addition to the 2 lead actors, this has so many of my favorite guys in this, like Basil Rathbone, it literally is the guy of Gisborne, and Claude Rains, who's of course the Invisible Man as Prince John. And it's just an awesome action adventure movie. I was sort of inspired to play it again by The Charge of the Light Brigade. And when Quentin programmed the Silent Peter Pan, which we're doing later in the month, and then we're also playing The Mark of Zorro with Douglas Fairbanks, I thought maybe we could sort of weave in this classic epic adventure theme, and Beau Jest sort of speaks to that as well. So it's interesting because back in 22, Douglas Fairbanks had done a Robin Hood as well, and we're showing his Mark of Zorro, and Fairbanks Jr. turned down playing Robin Hood in this one because he didn't really want to copy his father's legacy.
Oh, interesting.
It all ties
interesting.
together because we showed The Exile, which
Oh my God, which Roger and Quentin, they are so just 2 dudes that love The Exile. They love that windmill sequence.
Oh, it's awesome. We showed an awesome print of that back in June, and that one was produced and written by Fairbanks Jr., trying to like pay homage to his father, but not like ape his father's career. So, you know, even though Fairbanks isn't in Robin Hood, he was sort of a part
It's
of
like
the making of that
his
film.
DNA is in the
Yeah.
movie.
So I think that it's awesome. Flynn is amazing in this. He does almost all of his own stunts. It's just such a fun, like adventurous romp. I think it's the definitive take on this character. I know there have been a lot of different Robin Hood movies, including the one with Kevin Costner, and even later than that. And this is just sort of the best take. And they actually, it was so successful. They wanted to make a sequel of this, but World War II came along and sort of delayed the production to the point where Haviland and Claude Rains were no longer under contract with WB, and then they couldn't make it.
Hey, Matt, what is the format for The Adventures of Robin Hood?
So this is actually a VHS screening, and I have to say there are many different VHS releases of this movie, and they are all beautiful looking. There's a CBS Fox box. We have other boxes. I think we have 4 different VHS tapes of this one, which we're going to display when we play the movie. And unlike a lot of times where there's like one VHS release that is definitively better than other ones, I think they're all very beautiful looking, and they all have really great poster art on them. So I'm excited to display them.
Again, the 1938 The Adventures of Robin Hood plays Saturday the 9th at 7 p.m. Let's move on to the midnight. That night, the 9th of November at midnight, we have The Light at the Edge of the World playing, which again is another Video Archives podcast title. That one comes from Season 1, Episode 11.
A secluded lighthouse island turns into a bloody battlefield when Captain Andrew Morris and his crew get a shipload of unexpected visitors. Captain Jonathan Congray, Yul Brynner, and his band of bloodthirsty cannibals invade the island with only one horrifying intention. William Denton, Kirk Douglas, becomes the target of the invaders' deadly game.
To add on to that summary, Samantha Eggar's character has this like really kind of wild, over the top relationship with like Yul Brynner because they're pirates and they're essentially like raping and pillaging this like island and this ship. And Samantha Eggar like is trying to come on to Yul Brynner to like survive, and Yul Brynner just like does not care. All he cares about is Kirk Douglas and like kind of his battle with him. And so it's a really interesting aspect of the movie.
And if you like Demonoid, Messenger of Death,
Yes.
she's in that too.
Yeah, she's in that too. We loved Samantha Eggar on this first season of the podcast, and I hope that we get a little bit more of her in season 2. That's this week at the Video Archive Cinema Club. Remember, you guys, if you join our Patreon, patreon.com/Video Archives, you will get this episode 1 day early for free. If you'd like to get your tickets to any of these shows that we have talked about today, you can do so at
VistaTheaterHollywood.com.
And as always, follow the Cinema Club on Instagram at
Video Archives Club.
for updates on showtimes. See you guys next week.
Bye.
This calendar episode was produced by the Video Archives podcast and hosted by Gala Avery and Matt Landsman. Additional audio editing by Eric Clapp. Find even more of Video Archives on our Patreon, patreon.com/videoarchives. Copyright 2024, all rights reserved.